webinar is hosted by Alex Macon and Natalie Pereira from Seneca Marketing. I'll now hand over to both of them to get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalia and I'm the Creative Director of Seneca Marketing, and I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar. So I thought in terms of an icebreaker we could start with a poll. So the poll today is, the first poll is, what is your biggest challenge when planning an event? So I'll hand over to Sarah to compile the results.
Here we go. So this is the first poll. So if you can just answer, what is your biggest challenge when planning an event? Is it getting people to attend, promoting the event, securing sponsorship or grants, gaining media support, ensuring that people meet timeframes, getting people to assist in planning, or securing venues and suppliers? There we go, guys. There's a snapshot of the poll results.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So from the poll, we can see that a lot of people are having some trouble getting people to actually attend the event, and this is something that both not-for-profits and businesses face in terms of planning an event. So we'll start the presentation from there. So today we'd like to discuss events from a marketing approach. So firstly, we'll be discussing exactly what is marketing and how you can use marketing to promote your events. I'll then discuss more on event management, and then Alex will talk more about promotional tools. A little bit about our organisation. So we're Seneca Marketing, and we're a full-service marketing agency based in Melbourne. We started in 2009 as a marketing consultancy and focused on developing marketing plan and marketing strategies. In 2012, we expanded to a full-service marketing agency and have recently started an event management service. Both Alex and I have over 10 years' experience in marketing and event management. So a little bit more on Alex. He's the Managing Director of Seneca Marketing, and he has over 10 years of event management experience. Alex has planned a wide range of events, from conferences and workshops to even outdoor events and festivals. Alex focuses a lot on the strategy and the big picture, and he's quite good at developing events that get people to the event. A little bit about myself. I'm the Creative Director of Seneca Marketing, and I have 9 years of event management experience. My event management experience basically began in the not-for-profit sector as a volunteer. When I was at uni, I joined a club where I was the event manager. I planned a lot of different events for not-for-profits. From there, I was lucky enough to later get a job in corporate event management, where I planned music events, festivals, and even just corporate activations around various products and promotions. So I'll pass over to Alex to discuss more on marketing.
Part of the aims of today's presentation is really to adopt a marketing approach when you are undertaking events. What you're seeing on the screen currently is a standard textbook definition of what is marketing. But it's worth to consider, rather than looking at the textbook definition, it's worth looking at what forms of marketing you use and ensure that your events are aligned with your other marketing outcomes. So many organisations have websites, you'll have a collection of brochures, leaflets, most of you will have some form of newsletters or e-newsletters. But everything from any point of contact that someone has with your organisation is a form of marketing. And that includes the way that the telephone is answered, the way that email correspondence is responded to, and of course the events that you run. Every form of contact that you have with your target market will leave an impression, and that impression is a form of marketing. Yes, we will be making copies of the presentation available as well, and Redback also will provide a recording. When you are looking at events, it's very important that you begin with a marketing plan, and that marketing plan supports the vision of your organisation. So most of you should have a business plan. The business plan looks at what you want to achieve, and the marketing plan looks at how you can achieve those goals. So within that marketing plan, you'll have a number of actions that you want to achieve, and then looking at the strategies and outcomes that you can use to achieve those actions. And some of those, of course, will be events. So we're passing back to Natalia, who will be discussing some of the specifics around why you would actually want to run an event.
Thanks, Alex. So before you actually think of doing an event, you need to think about why you should actually run an event. Is it to raise awareness? Is it for fundraising? Do you want more people to participate in your initiative, launch a new product? Or even it could be an internal staff event to boost staff morale or some form of staff training. Another reason to run an event, of course, is to increase sales around your products as well as increase donations. So what makes a successful event? So that actually flows on from the previous slide. A successful event needs to achieve goals. So these goals should be a part of your marketing plan. An event also needs to strengthen your brand and raise awareness. So, as I mentioned before, it should also lead to increases in sales or donations. Events should be meaningful interactions, and they should also be memorable. One of the most important things a lot of people fail to realise about events is that events need to also be measurable. You need to develop tools before you plan an event that enable you to achieve this. Effective promotion also should be used with follow-up. So effective event management requires detailed planning and processes. This is the most important thing you need to remember before you undertake an event. An event also needs to be planned in advance. And this is something, especially in the not-for-profit sector, that a lot of people fail to see because there's a lot of time constraints that come with events. And you should always treat your event management exercise as a marketing exercise. I like to split an event into two different parts. So there's event pre-planning and then there's event planning. The event pre-planning focuses a lot on marketing. So as Alex mentioned before in his slides, you need to draw from marketing. So focus on who is your target market. Know your strengths and weaknesses and establish your key messages. When you plan an event, you need to establish value. Another thing is also to establish a team around planning this event. This team should comprise of different personnel. It doesn't have to be marketing or event personnel. In fact, a lot of idea generation can come from people who may be outside of the marketing or event team. And another thing is you may consider actually hiring an event manager, as this may take a lot of stress away from your business or organisation. You also need to consider who your suppliers are, so it's good to have a list of these suppliers as well as your supporters. One of the things I'd like to re-emphasise is that it's great to plan an event in advance. In advance means it's not planned 2 weeks before the event, but actually months in advance. And this is applicable even for a small workshop. So now we're moving on to event planning. Effective event organisation is critical. When you plan an event, you should work with a team, and your team should work collaboratively to their strengths. So if you have people outside of people who generally work on event management and the details around it, and maybe you might have a manager, that person could potentially be used to deliberate ideas. You should also refer back to your marketing outcomes, and you should document this planning process. And I usually use 4 different types of documentation: a diary, a run sheet, a roles and responsibilities sheet, and a budget. And I'll discuss those more in detail. So a diary can be both electronic, so it can be actually integrated with a CRM system, or manual. And a diary should be used to track your events. Now, it's important when you use a diary to actually work backwards. So start with all the planning that you need to do before your event and work from there, and plan all these dates in advance. So dates could involve meetings, delivery of supplies, goods and services, sales and promotional targets, as well as the invoices that you need to pay in order to run your event. A diary should also draw from timeframes established in your marketing plan. This is an example of a run sheet that I recently did for Amnesty International around their Melbourne Metro group. So a run sheet basically almost contains a map of the detailed proceedings of the event. It outlines the roles that everyone has on the day of the event, and it's a document that the event management team can use to ensure the event is running according to schedule. It should reinforce your marketing objectives, and it also works well with this other sheet that I use, which is called a roles and responsibilities sheet. So in this roles and responsibility sheet, what I mainly do is I list down everyone's names of who's involved with the event, and I list down all of their roles and responsibilities. These responsibilities are not just responsibilities on the day of the event. They're actually responsibilities during the whole event planning process. This roles and responsibility sheet is something I usually develop well in advance, and I also develop the run sheet well in advance so that we're able to map out an event. And this is usually done in conjunction with a diary. And you can also use the roles and responsibility sheet to track your suppliers, your event management provider, and also post-event planning. Another thing that's very important to consider is a budget. A budget is crucial to ensure the success of your event. A budget should be, it should cover everything that is undertaken during your event, and should be something that's developed well in advance of the event. A budget, obviously, for a lot of businesses and not-for-profits is essential to attain funding for the event, but it should be very detailed, and it could even be used to track the progress of the event. It's also an important tool for measurement and performance, as well as review. I come from an accounting background. Before I worked in event management, I was actually an accountant, and it was my strong budget skills and financial backgrounds that enabled me to actually get into event management. And I used to track pretty much the whole event through the budget, and we could see when things were going wrong because there were suppliers that hadn't been paid or things that we hadn't factored into the budget that definitely impacted the success of the event. So I'd definitely encourage you to invest in developing a very detailed budget. So I'll pass over to Alex to discuss more on marketing and how you can use marketing to promote your events.
The first part of this presentation looked at the components you need to assist in organising an event. What we're going to be looking at now are some of the promotional tools to promote your event and ensure that you get the attendance that you're seeking. So, Sarah, we'll be moving over to a poll looking at the marketing tools that people use to promote their events. Now,
great, and here we go.
So please select each option that you do use.
Do you usually see, when you do conduct these polls, Alex, do you usually see one that stands out from the rest?
It depends on the nature of the topic, but typically there always tends to be one promotional tool that does stand out. Usually a combination of the offline media, so the flyers, posters, leaflets, brochures, those aspects. What's great just looking at the results so far is that it does appear that people are actually using a mix of promotional tools.
Well, there you have it. We'll stop the poll now and continue on with the presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you. And that's great because different promotional tools are best geared towards reaching different people in your community and different target markets. So the people you want to reach on social media, for example, may be very different to the people that you're reaching through your external newsletters or the brochures that are produced by your organisation. It's very important that your communications are leveraged from your marketing plan. So your marketing plan will look at, we want to run this event, we're running this event to raise awareness about our organisation, and these are the promotional tools, and that might be a combination of media releases, brochures, social media, to reach people to attend that event. And each of those tools are obviously able to attract different segments of the community. The one main element to remember when you look at communications is the need for consistency. Every single promotional tool you use must be consistent in regard to the brand that you're promoting and the key messages that you wish to communicate as well. So if you're looking at holding a fundraiser where people can donate funds to your community organisation, it's very important that all communication channels you use reinforces the fact that this is a fundraiser and that's raising funds to achieve the outcomes of your organisation. It's also worth bearing in mind that you may also look at communication channels specifically for your event as well. So you may look at a series of newspaper advertisements to promote your event, which you may not necessarily undertake for the day-to-day operations of your organisation. So here are some examples of communications. Now this list is by no means exhaustive, but it has looked at a number of different promotional tools that do exist. It's worth bearing in mind that there are, of course, local community newspapers. There tends to be local community radio stations. They can be very good communication mediums, particularly for smaller organisations that tend to have a more localised reach. It's very important that when you look at the media, and we'll be discussing the media a bit further on, that you do localise your content so that it's actually relevant to the audience who are receiving those newspapers or listening into that community radio station. The media, as I mentioned, is an audience for your event. And it's worth questioning, why is it that they would want to cover your event? So what is the story from the point of view of the media? Is it a local news angle? Is it about celebrating the success of your organisation in the local area? Is it about the benefits that's provided to the local community? Find that local angle and ensure that you're able to use that when communicating with the media. And also make sure that you do contact the media early. So try and arrange a photo and speak to the relevant journalist as well. You do want to work at least 2 months in advance with the media. That gives you sufficient time to contact a journalist, to let them know that your event is coming up, and to then provide some detailed discussion around why they should cover your event. When we look at sponsorship, it's a matter of determining the value that your event can provide to potential sponsors. Do ensure that your sponsors have a presence at your events and that they receive recognition at your events as well. And if it is a new event, also look at ways that you can provide ongoing promotion for those sponsors as well. And that allows you to actually distinguish the support that you're receiving through sponsors and enables you to demonstrate additional value. So while a sponsor may have come together to support your event, you're also then able to demonstrate the additional value back to those sponsors as well. Very important in new events, where it's the first year of an event, where since there isn't any prior history to the event, it makes it difficult to justify the attendance numbers or even the reach of the event. So in that first year, you do want to work particularly closely with your sponsors to encourage them to support your organisation. After the first year, you'd hope that it will become a lot easier to bring sponsors back into future years. And that allows you in subsequent years not only to bring back your current sponsors, but also to bring on new sponsors as well. Many organisations, and particularly community events, are reliant on grants. And the process for grants is fairly similar to sponsorship. It's once again a question of value. What value does your event provide to the person or to the organisation providing those grants? So often for grants, you'll be looking at government sources of funding, whether that be local, state or Commonwealth. It's around finding how your event aligns with those sources of funds. So if your local council has priorities around a particular area of the community, how does your event cater to those needs? Once again, it's about your event fulfilling a need and delivering outcomes on behalf of those that are providing funds. Make sure that you stress that alignment with those funding partners. This component of the presentation is an abridged version of a more detailed presentation that we provide that looks at promotional tools more broadly. And one of the elements we often get questions around is the composition of media releases. I realise that the media release on the right might be a bit difficult to see on the screen, so we're happy to provide some fuller copies of those. But it's very important that you do forward plan media releases. As I mentioned, take the time to contact the media early on in the event process, and this is where your running sheet can be very, very useful in ensuring that you do take the time to contact the media, that you do take the time to promote your event as well. Unfortunately, given the many competing demands that we have in our day-to-day jobs, the event side of things can often become secondary to the day-to-day operations. And this is where a running sheet and an event schedule can help ensure that you do deliver on those outcomes that are needed. And often it's the moving targets, like the promotions, like the invitations, like the media liaison, that do tend to fall by the wayside because they're not seen, unfortunately in a lot of cases, as critical as some of the other factors that are required to plan and organise an event. Bear in mind the deadlines for the media. Local media in particular is released on a weekly cycle. Their deadlines tend to be the end of the week prior to that newspaper, but often you'll then need a week before that to actually work through the detail with the journalist as well. So you're looking at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance. Prior to that, you actually do want to build up a rapport with the journalist as well. So you do want to actually work prior to that to undertake the initial contact and the discussions as well. It's very important, if you do want to work with the media, that you do take the time to get to know the journalist. I often recommend that you do want to produce a media release, issue that media release, and then follow it up with the journalist as well. And a great tactic is to call them the following day via the phone and actually ask if they received your media release. And that ensures that you're able to confirm that they did receive the media release, but also to follow up on some of that discussion as well. And that allows you to actually elaborate on the detail within the media release. A media release itself should be kept to one page, so it's very important that you do keep the content to one page. If it's any longer, a journalist more often than not will not read anything further, and also have the critical details of your event as well. So when the event will be held, why you're holding it, where you're holding it, and the registration details as well. And often those details will almost be printed verbatim when someone's reporting on the event. Obviously, you want a media release in the lead up to the event, but it's also well worth undertaking a media release at the completion of the event too, so that you can actually promote some of the core outcomes and some of the successes of the event as well. So once you do complete your event, it's very important not to just forget about the promotion after the event, but to do the post-event follow-up as well. Obviously, there's online communication tools as well. And there's a combination of these, and these are becoming more and more important, particularly as we look at registrations moving from a paper-based method of registration onto online. And if you are running an event, online registration should definitely be considered. It allows you to easily manage registrations, allows you to keep track with the number of people registering, and also potentially allows you to seek other donations as well, if you are a not-for-profit community-based organisation. But there's also, of course, social media, there's your own e-newsletters, email campaigns, and obviously blogging and the online equivalent of word of mouth. Very important when you look at online communications that they remain as consistent to your offline communications. If your brochures, if your flyers have a certain branding and a certain look, make sure that that's replicated on the online communications as well. Often you'll find it takes a number of different times for someone to see the messages about your events before they actually take that action of registering or attending. The more consistent that communication is, the easier it is to prompt that action, and the easier it is to reinforce those key messages. So if you're looking at a fundraising dinner as an example, it allows you to reinforce the outcomes that that dinner provides for your organisation. So I mentioned before about websites, but do seriously explore online registration. Online registration makes it a lot easier to manage your events. It also makes it a lot easier from a payment side, because you can actually process payments online and instantly via credit cards, or via PayPal or other registration methods as well. Do include the event details on your website. A website needs a clearly defined call to action. So if you are running an event, one of those call to actions will obviously be the upcoming event. And this is where you do want to ensure that that event is easily accessible from your website. So if you are asking people to register for an event, make sure that they can just click on that event button and then go straight through to registration. The more time someone has to click through on a website, the less likely they are to follow through that process. And a great analogy is online shopping. Any of you that have shopped online, wanted to buy a product and then had to go through 6, 7 or 8 steps to check out the item, most of the time you'd just basically stop the process and find somewhere that makes it a lot easier. The simpler you can manage the online process, the better, and the more likelihood you have of people actually completing that registration process. The other great thing about the web is that you can also encourage pre-registrations. And this is particularly important for fundraising events where you may want people to register beforehand on the day. That way, if for whatever reason they are unable to attend the day, at least they've still actually paid for their commitment to the event. And that actually helps you then manage the numbers to an event as well. Great example is a local fund run which we've helped organise, where we've shifted the registrations from a paper-based registration onto an online-based registration. And that's allowed the organisation to manage the number of attendees on the day. So it's helped in knowing how many volunteers they need on the day to adequately resource the event. It's also then helped ensure that they have the appropriate number of water bottles, show bags and other merchandise as well that need to be provided to participants on the day too. So online registration does allow you to start answering some of those questions around how many people we can expect on the day of our event. Do make sure that you reinforce those outcomes as well. If you're asking people to attend your event, make sure that they understand why it is that they should be attending and the outcomes that can be achieved too. This brings us to social media, obviously an emerging platform for online media and one which is going to be increasingly used to promote events. What I'd like to do is look at some of the emerging platforms and some of the platforms that have experienced ongoing growth in terms of event participation. And Facebook, of course, is probably one of the most evident. 11.6 million Australians are on Facebook, and that's actually over half the population. What's great about Facebook from an event point of view is that it actually does allow you to promote events through your Facebook page, and allows you to actually build a community around those events. Facebook now allows you to actually have a link to external payment gateways for events as well. So if someone does register for the event online on Facebook, they can then be directed to a payment gateway to actually confirm the registration as well. Previously on Facebook, someone could say they were attending, but that would be the end of the process. Now they can actually be required to complete the registration information so that you can be assured that they are actually attending your event. Obviously on Facebook, your event should be linked to your Facebook page for your organisation. And if you are an organisation, you should actually have a Facebook page that's used to promote your not-for-profit organisation or your business as well. Twitter, great for quick announcements. Used by 2.5 million Australians, so while its usage might be low overall, it can be great for quick announcements, and particularly in generating buzz around the event on the day as well. And you may notice that quite a number of conferences these days use hashtags around the conference attendance and around the participation in the conference. Those hashtags allow you to follow the conversation. I understand some of you are attending this webinar through the association's forum, and no doubt they've got a hashtag around their participation and the events that are taking place in the conference. Those hashtags allow you to follow the proceedings of the event, and also allows you to have regular dialogue with the event participants as well. And that's where Twitter can be really useful from an event-based perspective. LinkedIn can be very useful in attracting business partners to your event. So LinkedIn can be very useful in obviously networking with prospective business sponsors, but also then promoting upcoming events from your organisation to a business market. So if you're looking at events where you do want to attract business or the business community, LinkedIn is certainly warrants exploration. And also ensuring that you have a profile on LinkedIn and are able to connect directly with those businesses as well. It's another great way of fostering ongoing connections with business partners. And when we look at the usage of LinkedIn, it's used by 3 million Australians. When you look at the working population of Australia being roughly 10 million, that's actually a fairly significant penetration rate, where 3 out of every 10 working Australians are effectively on LinkedIn. YouTube, of course, and YouTube can be a great medium for events where you can upload videos of your events and encourage, once again, that post-event participation around and promotion around your event. YouTube can be very useful in packaging sponsorship packages for events in subsequent years. So what we often suggest is, where possible, take a video snapshot of your event, package that into a package on CD or online via YouTube or your website, where you can actually then provide that as a gift back to your sponsors and actually show some of the highlights of your event. It's a great way of ensuring that sponsors are aware of the activity that was undertaken during your event, and also, of course, some of the outcomes that were achieved as well. So it allows you to really utilise those videos as a promotional tools. And this ensures that you're able to undertake ongoing promotion and ongoing activity around your event. I believe video, and YouTube in particular, has significant potential in providing a follow-up for your event and being able to utilise that for ongoing promotion in subsequent years. We've just completed the filming and editing for an event in regional Victoria, where we promoted, or where we basically took a snapshot of the success of their volunteering recognition event. That 3-minute video, the full event was obviously several hours long. We condensed it down to about 3 minutes, to highlight the successes of that evening and to demonstrate the appreciation that was seen by volunteers who were recognised during that evening. The aim of that video is to provide it on a CD, packaged to sponsors, so that they can actually see the outcomes of that event and be reminded of what their support meant to people in the community. Video can be a very powerful medium to build up that ongoing relationship. It also means that you can start with the base of promotional tools to secure sponsors the next time you're running that event as well. So when you're looking at post-event promotion, it's not just reaching the people that attended the event, but also building a platform to enable you to reach sponsors in subsequent years as well. And not just new sponsors, but also your existing sponsors and even government funding bodies as well. The more you're able to demonstrate this event was a success, the easier it becomes to request funding in future years. Instagram, an emerging social media platform, particularly in Australia, very heavily utilised overseas, particularly in the US. But over 1 million Australians are on Instagram, tend to be mobile-based, so it's people accessing Instagram on their mobile phone, and allows you to share photographs. Once again, it's a very highly visual medium, but it allows you once again to take some highlights of your event and to use those to showcase the success of your event on the day. Once again, it's about having the tools available to package your event for subsequent years. If it's an event that you are looking at potentially running on an ongoing basis, the more evidence you have of that event, the easier it becomes to firstly hold it in subsequent years, but secondly, to secure support for it in future years as well, and to build up that ongoing buzz around what that event accomplished and why people should attend, why people should participate within future years. While we've spent some time discussing social media, it's worth bearing in mind that email is still a very important communication tool. Most of you will have some form of regular email newsletters, and most of you probably do use email as an ongoing communication tool. Email should be utilised to promote your event. So when you are promoting your event, do advise people on your email list that your event is upcoming, and do send that email several times as well. So once again, this comes back to looking at how you plan your event and ensuring that you have those ongoing stages of promotion. With email, you don't want to bombard everyone on a daily basis, but do stagger when you send those emails out. So you may want to send an initial email if it's a fairly significant event, a month prior to the event, follow that up a fortnight before the event, then a week before the event, and then a few days beforehand. Stagger those emails so you're not bombarding people, but you are reminding them that that event is upcoming if they haven't already registered. If they have registered, it's a great way of thanking people for their registration and even reminding them a few days beforehand that your event will be occurring. If you are using email, ensure that you include the body of the event details in the email. I have a background in local government, and one of the real annoyances I had during my time as elected councillor were organisations saying, please see attached invitation. Often those email attachments can be difficult to receive on mobile devices. It meant that I had to go onto a computer, log in, just to get details that should have been on the body of an email message. If you do need to send an attachment to your email invitation, do ensure that you send them as a PDF. PDFs ensure that you are able to, as closely as possible, have the invitation as it appears on your screen, so it appears similarly on their devices as well. But also do include the core details in the body of the email as well. So if you do want to include an attached invitation, do at least include the fundamentals in the body of the email. So when the event's occurring, why someone should attend, how much registration is, and how they actually go about registering, or what it is for the next steps that you want someone to take when they see that email. Another great idea, given the number of emails that people tend to receive on a daily basis, is include the essential details in the subject line. So when the event is on, include that in the subject line and the name of the event as well. And that helps ensure that people firstly open the email and secondly look at it as well. So when using email, do include the core event details in the body of the text. Likewise, when you're sending a media release, do include the core media release in the body of the email. If you want to send photographs, if you want to send an event layout or an attendance list, you can do that as an attachment, but ensure that the core details are in the body of the email. The email body must be compelling enough for someone to open an attachment if they choose to do so. So at the very least, if they don't open the attachment, at least they'll be able to see the core details in that email message. And there's tools such as MailChimp that allow you to automate the sending of email messages as well. That means that you don't need to send a mass email through blind carbon copy or to including everyone in the to address field of an email message. You can actually then send personalised email messages that become a lot easier for people to respond to as well. It also ensures that legitimate email doesn't get trapped by spam filters as well. The more personalised you can keep an email message, the increased likelihood that someone will firstly see it and that they'll actually respond to it as well. So it's worth bearing in mind, what are the outcomes that you want from an event? Is it to increase the attendance? Is it to have a target around how many people we want to attend our event? Is it around the brand awareness, so increasing the awareness of your business or organisation? Or is it around providing an income source for your organisation? Is it looking at events that can actually provide income to enable you to undertake your day-to-day activities? Regardless of what those outcomes are, make sure that you have consistent messages in how you promote your events. It's not just about how you plan and undertake the event on the day, but it's also about how you promote your event, both in the lead up to your event, during your event, and afterwards as well. And that component afterwards is often an area that does tend to, unfortunately, get neglected once an event has occurred. While 90% of your work is obviously on the lead up to an event and during the event, there is still probably about 10% of activities that you want to undertake following an event as well. So do ensure that you don't neglect the activities that need to be undertaken after an event occurs. And look at how an event can actually reinforce your marketing activities. So ensuring that if you are holding an event, and if it's a fundraising dinner or if it's a community fun run, how that actually links back to your events. And make sure that you're able to reinforce those marketing outcomes. So ensure that it's always around how your event is viewed from a marketing perspective. So we have some next steps. We do operate a fairly proactive LinkedIn group if you do want to discuss your events in further details. If you are on LinkedIn, please do consider looking at our group. Otherwise, do look at our weekly newsletter as well, where we do have a range of topics, including event management, and some of the tips that you can undertake to undertake a successful event. We're certainly happy to take any questions, so please feel free to type those in the message box, and we'll certainly be glad to answer those questions as they come through. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And we have our first question from Stephanie, who is discussing what kind of strategies can you use to encourage people to book and pay early. Certainly, pre-registration is very useful, so do encourage people to register prior to the event. Use online registrations so you can shift people from registering before the event rather than just on the day. Stephanie, would you mind telling us what type of event it is, or if you've got a particular event in mind? Stephanie's just typing some further details on the event, but while that's coming through, perhaps the pertinent example is the fun run that we organised, where we actually shifted participation or registration on the day through to pre-registration. Some of the strategies around that, and I believe they'd be similar for your corporate style events, so your conferences and forums, Stephanie, would be around, firstly, discounts for pre-registration. Make sure that those discounts are sizable enough to attract people to register beforehand, or look at ways that you can bundle in other offers if people do register before the day. Early bird specials, the chance to win a special prize can be other great incentives for pre-registrations, and do try and encourage those registrations online as well. So it does help, firstly, ensure that you're able to capture those participants' details and also remind them as the event's upcoming as well. They're some of the strategies that we've found to be quite useful in encouraging pre-registrations and shifting people from just turning up on the day to registering beforehand. In terms of the communication methods, encouraging or stating that places are limited is a great way of shifting people to register beforehand as well. So mention that there is limited capacity. Obviously, it's people that register first get in first, and that can be another great way of shifting people to register beforehand as well. And maybe even mention that there's no guarantee that if people do attend on the day, that they'll be able to secure a placement as well. Hope that answers your question, Stephanie. Certainly happy to take further questions as well.
If anyone does have any other questions though, Alex and Natalia, would they be able to submit them afterwards? Maybe email you guys and just ask you a few questions and you can respond to them. Would that be okay?
Yeah, more than happy to. Yeah, actually, Maria, you're quite correct. Early bird registrations for conferences can be a bit difficult, where people we find do tend to leave registering as late as possible. I agree, discounts travel rates make sense. It actually then provides an incentive to not only register for your conference, but also it deals with the hassle of travelling arrangements as well. And no doubt, when you look at potential partners for that package, you may be able to work out some sort of incentives with travel agents and potentially hotels as well. So I think that's a great way to go. It actually provides a further incentive and reduces the hassle for people if they do register early. So it actually saves the person that's registering early a lot of time. Some great thinking there.
Great. Well, I think that's all the questions that have come through right now, but I'll just leave it to the two of you to finish up before we make some closing comments.
Right. We still do have a couple of moments, so we're happy to take any last-minute questions.
I see we've got one from Jessica.
Okay, suggestions for expanding reach for potential delegates. I think firstly it comes down to looking at who the delegates are to your existing events and ways that you can leverage their networks. And this is where actually social media can be quite useful. The peers of the people that attend your event are more than likely than not going to be those that may be interested in your event as well. If you wouldn't mind, Jessica, would you be able to just provide some background in terms of what event it actually is, or the types of delegates that you're looking at attracting? Social media can be quite useful in reaching the peers of the people that attend your event. So actually promoting your event through social media and attracting those delegates to promote your event through their social media networks can be quite useful as well. Obviously, it does depend on the nature of your event. If it's a business-to-business type event, LinkedIn can be quite useful. If it's a community-based event, then certainly Facebook can be a very useful promotional tool as well. And having something as simple as the Ask, where you can actually request your delegates to actually distribute information about your event to other people that may be interested. Yep. Local government, that's where I'd actually target, firstly, I guess the outcomes that you're seeking to achieve. I'm assuming that you're looking at specific areas of local government or a specific level in local government. It'll be a matter of actually demonstrating the outcomes that people in local government can actually achieve through those outcomes. And you're right, social media is difficult in the local government context. A lot of local governments have a policy of almost prohibiting social media usage. So it is around using those delegates to reach their networks. So email communications will be quite useful. Encourage them to refer your event on to others that they know in local government, or particularly others that may get some usage out of that event. Maybe tie it into leadership development. A lot of local governments are focused on building up the capacity of their organisations and their staff. Maybe it's a way that they can actually provide visibility to other people in that department and building up some of that leadership and building up, I guess, other staff members to gain the capacity from that event as well. And even the basics around even refer a friend type promotion. And once again, packaging discounts and incentives as well can be quite useful. Or it may even be a competition around the department that actually attracts the most people to your event. Thank you, Jessica. I hope that answers those queries. Natalia, is there anything you'd like to add based on the questions that came through?
I think maybe if you can explain how it's more about our event management services that might tie in this presentation.
Sure. We are a full-service marketing agency, so we look at the pre-event, the event, post-event components of it. I hope some of the insights you've gained out of today's presentation is, an event begins at the initial stages. There's obviously a lot of work into the lead-up to the event, but then it's also the post-event promotion and follow-up as well. So it's not just looking at, we want to run an event, it's mapping out what steps need to be taken and almost working backwards from the day of your event. Seems to be a question that may be coming through, so if there is one further question, we're happy to take it on board, and thank you very much to everyone for attending today's webinar as well. Redback do make the presentations available on YouTube, and we'll certainly have the slides available on our website as well. If you would like to receive notification of when those slides are available, please do subscribe to our newsletter because notification will come from those. And thank you very much for your attendance today. And also for the feedback that's coming through as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you both, Alex and Natalia. A very inspiring presentation there. As Alex just mentioned, we will be actually sending out a recording to the webinar. So if you complete the exit survey at the end, we will ensure that that gets sent to your email address. So once again, thank you for joining on our webinars. We hope to see you at future webinars and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.